We're not. Right. There seems to be something about 50%. Now, it doesn't matter from a number standpoint, I guess, from delegates, but there seems to be a number, and I don't know why. I think they're doing it so that they can set a high expectation. So if we end up with 49%, which would be about 25 points bigger than anyone else ever got, they can say, he had a failure. It was a failure. Fake news.
Donald Trump trying to downplay the idea that there's a 50% number floating around out there. People want to see him get a majority. And I think he might be right on that. People looking for an opportunity to bring him down if he even has a resounding victory, like a 49% would be pretty big. Let's get to our guest, Hogan Gidley, America First Policy Institute Senior Advisor for Communications. Hogan, welcome back to the show. What a busy day. Thank you for fitness in your schedule.
Hey, Annie, thanks so much. Happy Caucus Day to you and to your listeners out there.
So when you hear President Trump, happy Caucus Day to you as well. When you listen to President Trump talking about 50%, 49%, what do you kind of expect to see out of Iowa today?
Well, he makes a good point. I think in large measure, media will work to create a narrative so that if someone doesn't meet that narrative, then they can already have the stories written that that person failed to meet the narrative that they themselves set, that the candidate or the campaign did not set. But look, I think, interestingly enough, there are two ways to run elections. You run them unopposed or you run them scared. And it seems to me as though the Trump campaign understood that they needed to get to work. They weren't going to take it for granted. 1,600 or so precincts in the state of Iowa. They have more than 2,000 precinct captains. They have 400 training centers to teach caucus goers exactly what they need them to do tonight at the caucus. So I think they're prepared to do things the right way. The other candidates also have a really big ground game, as does DeSantis with the endorsement of Kim Reynolds, the governor, and Bob Vanderplaat, who runs a large evangelical organization there. But Nikki's surging. So who knows? But it looks like right now the old adage still proves true. You can't sell a bad product. And Donald Trump is a great product, and he is up by a massive amount in the state of Iowa. So whether he wins by 45, whether he gets 45% or 50%, it's a big win for him and his campaign.
Hogan, would you have any advice for these candidates if they come in under 20% after Iowa, when we actually have some real numbers, not just polls, to back up where support is for the alternatives to Donald Trump? Are you looking for people to drop out after Iowa?
They may, but look, I didn't tell them when to get in, so I wouldn't tell them when to get out. That's up to them and their campaigns. But the fact of the matter is money matters, and you can't continue on if you don't have that base of support that you can fund people on the ground or fund your travel, fund advertising, all the things you would need to have in order to win an election. But let's be honest, if someone like DeSantis, for example, who was the heir apparent to Donald Trump, finishes third behind Nikki, it's going to be really problematic for his donors probably to see that other pathway. But then on top of that, you have someone like Nikki who 43% of her supporters say if it's down to Trump or Biden, they'd vote Biden. So a lot of them are Democrats. And when you look at the New Hampshire primary, everyone there can vote in a Republican primary, whether you're a Republican or not. So a lot of things are at play here. But after this whole thing is over, you have to start looking at the actual strategy and the pathway forward. If Donald Trump, and these are all ifs, of course, but if Donald Trump wins tonight, turns around and wins New Hampshire, regardless of the percentage and regardless of the never Trump vote that Nikki Haley seems to have coalesced, then he'll be 2-0 going into South Carolina, win that state. You're 3-0. I don't know how anyone would derail him after a 3-0 start when everybody else would then be 0-3.
Absolutely. Hogan Gidley with us right now with America First Policy Institute. How quickly do you think that this party can get behind the nominee, whether the formality of the rest of the caucus and primary events need to take place? If it's Donald Trump, like you said, 3-0 in South Carolina, do you think that the party's ready to get behind Donald Trump and make sure he crosses the ultimate finish line?
Well, they better be unless they want 4 more years of Biden. And listen, I'm sorry to say this, but I worked for, Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, and I'm one of those guys who, for years, when the establishment candidate wins the nomination, I was told to hold my nose and get out there and work, and I did it. So I'm sorry, but those people out there refuse to get on board once a nominee is chosen. I mean, you force all of us to do it for decades. Now you're going to have to suck it up once and do it yourself, too. So, look, we are by our very nature more individualistic than the other side. The other side likes to put people in groups and likes to put people in big monoliths so they can push and pull them as politics would dictate. But our side is not that way. But at the same time, that's fine. That's all well and good. But politics is a team sport, and you have to get on the same page and on the same team and work together in order to get victories.
Yeah, amen. So well said. So many people have been told, "Well, hold your nose and vote for the red shirt."
Mitt Romney.
And
Please.
yes,
Yeah, give me no offense to Mitt Romney, but come on. I had to hold my nose and do that. Everyone else did too. We all worked for the greater good, quote unquote, and we lost the election. That's fine. But, I'm sorry, you got to suck it up. We got to win an election here.
last question, Hogan. We know you got to run. I want to ask you about the Joe Biden factor. I think I heard today 33% approval rating. It's unbelievable how low his own party is even supporting him right now. If you're Donald Trump or any of these other candidates looking to be the nominee, are you preparing to battle in the general against anybody, or are you squaring your eyes set on Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee?
Look, I think they're all kind of cut from the same cloth. They're all radical at this point. I mean, Gavin Newsom is just a younger version of Joe Biden with these crazy radical policies. But at the same time, it looks like Joe Biden's going to be the nominee. And unless he takes himself out of it, regardless of the people waking up to the fact he's just not great within his own party, I still think he is the nominee and he's the one that pushes forward. And you need to prepare for all eventualities. But at the same time, there's a finite amount of resources and time. And the left is running out of time if they're going to try and switch the ticket.
Hogan, Gidley, thank you for the time today. Happy Martin Luther King Day and Caucus Day. We look forward to getting some results tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Of course. Bye-bye.